my glow friends, this is Natasha. I am so excited that you have decided to tune in today. What is the Glow Up Method? The Glow Up Method is all about personal transformation, life stories, facing challenges, learning from the challenges, really appreciating where you are. It's about gratitude. It's about growth, which today is our topic. So here we are. And for those of you that have been tuning in for a while, you're going to recognize this baby. So check this out. Okay. So, over the summer, I was talking about how seasons change. And suddenly this little home of this beautiful succulent that I had made, it was no longer happy here. Like, where was it? How was it set up here? I don't know. Let it so you guys can see as much of it. You can enjoy it. So it wasn't happy there. And what I was realizing was it's not thriving in this environment. As much as I wanted it to sit there, it was not happy. And I kept trying to do different things. And finally I had to come to terms with that one and the two that were in my windowsill. They needed to go. They needed to move. They needed to, let's just try out these theories that I'm talking about in here. I mean, if it's going to work for some succulents, it's going to work for us, right? So it was this test. It was this realization. I really, really wanted those succulents to work out there. They were so pretty. It brought this new life. It was a change. It was exciting. I loved it. And at first they were doing fine. And then suddenly I noticed they were barely surviving. And, my whole goal here and my whole goal, of course, with these succulents, I spent so much time, creating this arrangement of, I wanted them to thrive. And so I moved them to a different location. And some still, once dead, they didn't come back to life. But the ones that were alive, the ones that were hanging on there, they started to flourish just like this. And as you can see, it's been a few months. It's been a season of summer. They've been gone. They haven't been here. But look how much it's grown. Like, I almost need to do some maintenance and figure out, like, am I going to transplant some of them? Am I going to trim them? There's some decisions to make. There was a lot of growth. But that didn't happen overnight. It wasn't small. And then the next day, it was this magical succulent growing powers. No. And just like the succulents, that's what's going on with us. There's growth and it's happening daily and we don't always recognize it. We don't always see it. We don't even know it's happening. Like, have you ever had this situation if you're a parent or you have an animal parent or nieces or nephews or grandchildren and you see them every day and you don't notice the changes, especially when they're little. And like the changes are, happening so rapidly as, in compared to the rest of our adult lives, right? And they're just so obvious, right? You're this small, you're never really this small, but I mean, you're this small, then you're this small, like you're growing, right? Or you're crawling and then you're walking and you're not talking and then you're talking and there's so much change happening and you just don't notice it. But then suddenly you look at an older picture, maybe just from a month or two ago, and you're like, wow, like you've grown so much, you're taller, or you don't see them for a while. Like say if you're a grandchild, niece, nephew, friend, whatever it is, and you see that growth. So like somebody even on a weight loss and health journey, like if I don't see somebody at the gym for a long time because either I'm not there or they're not there or schedules aren't lining up, and then they see me again or I see them again because some are on their journeys too. And of course I am like, hello, yes, you're doing it, biggest cheerleader, #1 fan club here. And, I take notice like, wow, but had I seen them every day, sometimes those changes are hard to see. And that goes with us too. It's hard for us to see the changes that are happening within us, but they are. Each time that we understand that, we are deserving, that we are worthy, each time we set a boundary and then enforce it, we are growing. Every time we have curiosity and we read and we learn or we watch a podcast or a YouTube, we are growing. We are growing as people. We are growing as individuals. And that's such a beautiful thing, right? This is the critical aspect of the glow up journey here is to grow. We're not trying to stay stagnant. Like that's another channel. I don't know. Like I did that for a long time. and it just didn't work for me. And I'm imagining I was growing too. It just was a very slow. It took a long time for that little seed to take root. Just kind of like here when we had droughts for years in California, and then we had this like enormous, massive amount of rain a couple years ago. And then that spring, nothing had changed, nothing different. Nobody went around sprinkling magical wildflower seeds. But that spring, they had what was called a super bloom, because there was this extreme of no water and then this inundation of water. Somehow these seeds that had been there like dormant took root and they bloomed, and it was super. So I feel like that kind of happened with me. It was like they were there all along, these seeds, but they just now, I was in a drought for a very long time. And then I started just taking on so much water by talking to people, reading, listening to audiobooks, listening to podcasts, having this curiosity. I started like rapidly taking in the water. And as a result, I made rapid changes. And here they are in my super bloom season. So, I say all that to say, as part of my process, I understand that in order to obtain the life I want to live, in order to have the things in my life that make me happy, that I am designing, I need to let things go. And some of those things are physical things, right? Those are easy sometimes. Sometimes, I'm going to reiterate, because we have this sentimental toll. Like, I don't know, I do personally, about certain things. I mean, for years and years, I kept every single one of my kids' toys. It's twofold. The first time I had the first two set of kids, I thought I was done. After the first kid, I thought I was done. But after the second one, I really thought I was done. Gave away the cribs, the toys, and I was like, I have a boy, I have a girl. Like, what more could I want, right? Like, that's great. Like, my kids were not born without challenges. It's very expensive in California. My marriage is on, borrowed time here. This person has had an affair already on me. So there's not a lot of trust here. And it just seemed like the reasonable thing to do. So I got rid of things. And then I got pregnant. Yes, thank you, failure of birth control. But I love the kid. Love it. Love him. So glad that, he's here and has enriched my life. So I'm not going to be mad about it. But I then had to start over. And I had already had like everything you could possibly need, got rid of it and needed to start over. But I also now had the perspective of, what do I really need? And so I tend to kind of hold on to things. I've had a lot of experiences where, like, again, there's not a lot of photos of me as a kid. Why? Not because they weren't taken, partially because they weren't taken, but secondarily, like, my mom had taken some. They got, she didn't pay for the storage. They were, whatever, trashed, whatever it would happen with them. There was this coveted white photo album. It was promised to me. It was given to me. I then felt this people-pleasing tendency. My brother wanted it, and he wasn't going to talk to me, and I panicked, and I was like, I don't really want to, and he promised he would only have it for a week, month tops, and now it's been like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. I don't even know how many years, and I could just kiss that thing goodbye, and he would use it over me, dangle it over me, as if like, oh yeah, I didn't give that back to you. I don't even know why I want it. Like, it doesn't even have pictures of me. Oh yeah, I haven't seen that in years. Like, it was something that meant a whole hell of a lot to me. And it was almost weaponized in a way against it's my feelings. I don't know if it was his intent, but like how it was intended. And then to never, he's moved multiple times. He's done things to like never slip it in the mail and send it back to me, or give it to our dad and give it to him, somebody, or my mom or something. And it's hurtful. So like, having these certain things I really like almost like hoard onto, because I think there wasn't a lot of stability, and I moved a lot as a kid, and I changed a lot of schools, and even within my family dynamics as a young kid, there was change, right? There was divorce. There was, at certain times my aunties had moved in because of either financial reasons or because of, their own divorce. And oh yeah, by the way, parental kidnapping, what the hell? What a weird life I've lived, I swear. So, here we are, cousin, you're parental kidnapped, your name was one thing, and now you have a new name, and I have to keep this straight, and I'm gonna get a spanking and put in the corner if I call you by the name that I've known you for the last 4 years. So, you know, life is weird sometimes, but you get through it. It builds character for sure. But I have this tendency to really put so much like sympathy. Okay. Like, let me think. I mean, I can just look around here and I'm like, what do I want to show? What do I want to show here? Anyways, there's things around me and they were given to me. And so I look at these things and I think of that person and I think of this person, like they thought of me. Here they are. And this is something silly. My friend Lily from my dance class went to Italy. I can't even, the strings are coming off. She brought me this. It smells like lemons. I love it. So that's why I leave it here on my windowsill, because when the sun hits it, it makes my room smell like lemons. But I look at it and I think of Lily. And now I have this emotional attachment to it. And, you know, I have like, you know, a lot of things like that. And so I'm really, and for years, like I was saying, I didn't even get to this part. I kept all my kids' toys. It was like twofold. It was like holding on to a part of their childhood. It was being prepared just in case somehow another form of birth control, you know, failed, which by the way, I wasn't doing anything. So unless I'm having baby Jesus up in here, there wasn't a whole hell of a lot to worry about. Sorry. But, and the next thing was I wanted to have it to give to my kids. I had such a sentimental thing and they had played with it. And how beautiful would it be if when, you know, the grandkids come over to see grandma, she had all these toys that their parents once played with and they will love them and they will adore them. And my kids will be so happy that, thank you, Mom. I don't have to spend all this money on Thomas the Tank Engine or Legos or Barbies because you held on to these coveted items for a lifetime, as if they were an investment, as if it was some badge of honor. It was a trophy saying I was a good mom, they were good kids, and we were deserving. I don't know what it was. So it took me a real long time. And finally I had came to this place where it was like, if I was donating back, if I was giving back, I was allowed to get rid of it because I felt like I was now passing on the joy. Probably because I love the freaking movie Toy Story. Like, don't get me wrong. It's like, I've gone to the movie 5 times in the last, I don't know, 10 years. And like, I think 3 of them have been Toy Story movies. So don't hate the player, hate the game. I'm just kidding. But like, no, seriously. And so I think I have this, you know, this connection, this holding on to, and I think probably let's break this down here as if we're in a therapy sesh. Like probably, you know, because I didn't really have a childhood, and it was a symbolism for me as I'm like sitting here and thinking in real time. This is in pre-thought, guys, here, but like thinking about how, you know, what a childhood represented, and it just had this whole thing, and it probably had a lot to do with the loss of my own. And, you know, like as like my motivation and my triggering or whatever, it seemed like, you know, it was just about, you know, being a good mom and future grandma or whatever. So I put this, I put a lot of weight on some things. Now I used to value like jewelry, but I was robbed once. I actually walked in on the scene of the crime and I was like, hello, you know, like, and the guy came running down the stairs. Like he was like 10 feet away from me. And thankfully he had no gun, no weapon, no anything, and ran out the front door. And he took with him like precious family heirlooms that I had inherited that I was going to give down to my kids and my daughter in particular, because a lot of it was jewelry that went to like the firstborn daughter, and you know, had this like whole hierarchy from way back when, and it's just gone. And so for a little while, like personally, I didn't hold a lot of attachment to anything, because it was like, it was really sad because it was like gifts from my grandma, gifts from like people, ancestors I never met or knew, but had their stories connected, you know, gifts from my mom, gifts from Chris, gifts from my dad, like so many things that I had been like, I'm saving money to buy this because I really had this, you know, my grandma loved the sparkle and the bling and the diamonds. And so I was like, oh yes, like, you know, like that's ooh la la, you know, I put this like emphasis on it. And after that, it like just turned my stomach. Like it was just like, this is such, it's number one, it's a disappointment. Number two, it is like, so like easy come, easy go, like, no, or hard come, hard go, whatever it may be. Like, it just represented so much to me. Like, it just, that's why, I mean, like these fake, you know, like I will not go and spend a lot of money on some real jewelry because it's just like, I could lose it. Someone can take it. Like, it just, you know, I like the way it looks, you know, like I'm not wearing a wedding ring, you know, well, I'm not married well, Any Who'svilles. I wasn't wearing one before anyways, but before it was like I couldn't wait to have a wedding ring, and when I would wear it, it'd be like, hey, everything was like, oh, let me use, now I was using my left hand, like, oh, look at my wedding ring, but I put a lot of value into things. And actually my first wedding ring was a $50 wedding ring from Mervyn's that my grandma bought, and because he couldn't afford a wedding ring, and so it was just I think it was like a, not even a quarter carat, like little diamond thingy or whatever, but whatever, it was what it was. It's not about the material, but for somebody who was like, had this envision, for my grandma, like growing up watching Marilyn Monroe and how diamonds are a girl's best friend, I was like, where the heck did the diamond go? Like, what's this? And so, like a couple years later, a year later, he ended up, going and buying me a diamond, but I hated it. Like, I had no say in it. He just picked the band, he picked it, and it was just like such a disappointment because, like I always had this vision of what I wanted, and he just went and got what he thought I wanted without like having this thing. So it kind of symbolized to me like just how little like he knew of me. Not only did he not know what kind of ring I wanted, but that he didn't know me enough to know to even ask me to consider what my opinion was. Although back in those days, I'm gonna be honest, I would have been like, whatever you think, whatever. But it just didn't feel right with me. But my oldest son, he loved playing with it, so I let him play with it one day, and then I got a call from our CPA, and so I got up, I moved away from my son, and then I came back and I'm like, where's the ring? And he can barely talk at this point, and he was just like, I'm scouring the house, scouring the thing. He had gone on the deck. And so the thought process was he must have thrown it off because he loved throwing balls and toys, and then we'd go down and get it. So the thought is maybe he threw it there. So either my diamond is still there, but Chris has like rented like metal detectors. Like we tried everything. It was gone. And then a few years later, he did the same thing. He just went and bought me a new ring. And again, I didn't have the feedback, so it's not the cut I want. And I did switch the band to a band I wanted, but that also came with like a $700 change because there was a change fee. It was ridiculous. Anyways, so I don't have this whole value on jewelry anymore per se. But some objects are really difficult for me to get rid of. Some pairs of clothes. Actually, at one point, I had to come to terms and be like, these clothes need to go. And I'm kind of disappointed. Again, this is where it comes in. I'm like, I should have saved a couple things, like a couple of the peak things, just to show how far I've come. But why do I need a piece of clothing to show? I know how far I've come. I don't need anything, I don't need that shock value. I don't need anything else besides what I know. Like, I already know how far I've come. So, I don't need to save every seed in order to be like, well, see, this is how far the succulent has grown. This is the seed. This is the pod, where it became from. But, I think the growth is just part of it. So anyways, I come say all that backstory. I'm coming to a point, I promise you. So I'm cleaning out, decluttering, saying, okay, here's some more clothes that can go. I haven't worn these in a while. Again, I'm a big donator. So I had back to the toys. I ended up deciding for me what felt really good was I donated the toys back to the preschool in which the kids had went to. It was blocks. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of toys, dolls, like everything you can imagine, and all in really good condition, in bins, in everything. And so I was really excited to be able to give that back and know that these toys were now going to spread so much joy, not just to a group of, like just one family or something. Like, this was going to go to kids that for generations could be playing for these things. So, that was like what felt good about how giving away. And like for me too, like now it's like, as long as it's going to somebody, like this is like my own thing. Like, I don't want it to be a waste. I don't want to just go sit in a garbage can, like to give it to somebody else who will, again, one man's trash is another's treasure, like treasure, appreciate, use, whatever, until it's time for them to give on to somebody else. So I'm cleaning out my room. And I'm shifting. I don't like the way where one set of clothes is. So I'm shifting my closet, which, again, it's like you do one little thing when you're cleaning and it's like the next thing and the next thing and the next thing kind of starts snowballing, right? So I start and I stumble upon something. And it was really something that meant a whole lot to me. it was probably one of my most treasured, or at least kind of publicly treasured material items I had. It always sat on my dresser, and it was the first gift from Chris. And when he gave me this gift, I don't know how much was thought out or known, but I gave it this story, right? It was this music box. It was a musical jewelry box. And first off, when I was a little girl, I had a lot of little musical boxes, and I would play them all the time. I would sit in my room alone and I would play these musical boxes, and it just almost transported me. It transported me to this fantasy world where, I was in the past, and I knew the stories about how my family had this royalty and in there, and I was in a big castle, and life was good, and I'm just listening to my musical boxes, and there was no care in the world. And so I'd almost be transported back to that. And it brings me like this lullaby, this calm inside, sometimes a little sadness, but it's a very beautiful thing, very peaceful, very calming. Love the music. So he comes with this gift, and I'm like, how did he know? And at that time, like kind of peachy kind of roses were my favorite color. So this music box has these peachy roses, peachy pink, kind of corally kind of colors on it. And I was like, how did he know? And I open it up, I turn it over, I start playing the music, and you wouldn't believe it. The song that came out was You Are My Sunshine. You Are My Sunshine is what my grandma would sing to me all the time. And, after this jewelry box was given, was something I would always sing to my son. And, sometimes I'd have these like fantasies in my head as a little girl holding all my dolls, and like, you're my sunshine, and please don't take my sunshine away. And this song has this huge emotional toll. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, this person knows me, and they get me, and no one's ever given me a jewelry box, and at that time I loved jewelry, and no one's ever given me a musical box, besides family, like, as far as like a boyfriend, or, like a somebody courting me, whatever you want to call it, dating, whatever it is. And then he knew I loved these roses, and I made this story that was just based on a gift. And when I asked him, he didn't know. He just thought it looked cool, and he liked the sound. He thought it was cool. Like there wasn't this story that I put to it. What was inside? It was like the jewelry box. It was empty. There was nothing in there. But I created this entire story, and I made this one of this prized possession, and it was this symbolism for our relationship, that like he knew me, and I didn't even need to say anything, and he wanted to spoil me with something. So as I was cleaning, over this last year, I've been like decluttering, right? So it's like what things are, for lack of better words, sparking joy, and what things have like led their course within my life. And they're time to now, be shared and bring joy to somebody else, or however it looks. So I've enjoyed that more peaceful environment I've created within my room, home, office, and studio. And oh yeah, gym, forgot about that one. But, maximizing my space in here. But I then slowly go pick it up, and much like our relationship, the glue had broke. It broke. And it's still empty. And it's still here. And I think I still have the other 3 pieces of this. But it just was such a symbol to me about us. And it was a symbol to me. The music still plays, which is still beautiful, which I love. But I started to cry, right? I never thought that I'd ever have the courage to listen to myself. And I really thought that these fantasies, the symbol, like this fantasy that Chris knows me, and he will do anything for me. I mean, I'm his sunshine. It just wasn't what the reality was. I created this story, and I really held on to it as if it was fact. But in fact, it was not. And part of the growth journey for me has been realizing that growth, like, has been realizing that there are those changes and listening to myself and understanding that I created some stories because I wanted it. It like seems so good. Like it seems so like this was a good option. Like this was happy. This was what love was. And so for me, a big day was deciding to put the jewelry box away and not have it displayed anymore. It just didn't have that same luster and story anymore. And I know Chris came in the room once and he was like, "Where is it?" And, knowing that I had always proudly displayed it, no matter which home we lived in, no matter, which room I was in, it was always something out on display. And so it was something obvious that it had changed. And I just said, "Oh, I'm just decluttering things." And, he took it very much as, "Oh, you're just trying to get rid of me and everything about me." And it wasn't about getting rid of him, but it was about allowing space for me. It was about allowing space for my peace and letting go of these stories that I made up because it was like a fantasy. I was like a little girl who was wanting this dream life, who was wanting this thing. And then in actuality, it wasn't that. And then I was sad and I was frustrated and I was angry and I was hurt and I didn't want to feel like that anymore. And so I needed to let go of these stories that I've created and accept Chris for who he is. And part of that acceptance process that happened over these last 3-4 years was allowing myself to see him for who he really was. And then this, not for who I thought he was, not for who I wanted him to be, but for who he really was. And then I had the opportunity to decide, is this somebody who aligns with me that I'd like to invest the rest of my life in? And as more things came out and more hurts were thrown my way and more things happened, I realized this is not the type of person. I talk a lot about art environments and who we spend time with and his energy for me personally. And if he doesn't even behave this way with everybody else, like some people he's this way, some people he's completely different. But the energy with me, his interactions with me personally, which is the only thing I can attest to, and how sometimes he behaves with the kids, but I'm in this estate, I'm going to talk about how it impacts me. It just isn't the healthiest environment for me. It is just not good. So I have to make these decisions, but it doesn't mean it's not sad, right? Like when we grow, it can be uncomfortable. Do you remember when we were little and all of a sudden we'd wake up in the middle of the night and we're like, "Oh, growing pains." Growing hurts. Like it's about letting go. It's about making space for new things. And it's about, doing things that are uncomfortable. And for me, admitting and telling him that I no longer want to be part of this relationship was really hard. Like it's hard to not feel selfish or guilty or ashamed. But I know that if I continue to move through those emotions, if I continue to accept that, yeah, today I'm sad. Like I'm sad. I can play this song and I can cry for 15 minutes and just keep spinning it because it's a loss, right? And I know that there's a lesson and I know all those things, but it's okay to be sad in the moment if something that you really wanted didn't work out. It's okay to be sad about, the future that you thought you were going to have that's going to look a lot different. So I say all this to say you are growing. It may not always be visible to you. You may look at yourself and you look the same as yesterday and the day before and the day before. But just much like the picture I showed you guys at 300 pounds to now, you're like, holy crap, which is why I hang the picture, because it's a reminder for me of just how far I've come. Yes, I know it, but sometimes I like to have that reminder and feel that pride and be like, if I can do that, there really isn't anything I can't do. I mean, maybe fly to the moon. Not really interested in doing it, but it's just this symbolism that you can do anything you want. You need the consistency. You need to start. You need to go small and keep it up. And especially on those days when you don't want to. And you have to honor where you are in that process. Some days it's going to hurt. Some days it's going to suck. But some days it's going to be really good. And some days you're going to be so proud and pumped. So It's about embracing each one of those days and continuing to make your forward progress so that you can live the life that you are proud of from the inside out, not from the outside in, and deciding on how you're going to interact and engage in this world based on what other people want or expect of you. So I say all this to say thank you. Thank you for tuning in today. Just like this plant, you are freaking growing and I love it. I am growing. We are all changing and I love being a part of this journey because every day we are literally blessed to be in the absolute best school in the universe, which is called life. So go out there and enjoy it. Please go out there, give somebody a big smile, give them a compliment, and just watch how they glow up. Bye.